let's get on to the powerful stuff. Attribute selectors. Most of you probably know this, but we're going to go into it anyway. Attribute selectors, when you put an element on a page, like an input, every input has an attribute, because you can't have an input without the type attribute. You can't have a link, or you shouldn't have a link without the href attribute. Rather, a link without the href, an image without a valid source. Don't put an empty source attribute on your images, because some browsers will actually go fetch a 404 page. That's useful. It actually makes it doesn't kill your performance, but it harms your performance. So anyway, so they all have attributes. So here we can just say any image with an alt attribute. And all of your images should have alt attributes, because it makes your images accessible. So here it'll match this. It'll match this because right here there's an alt attribute. It will not match this because it has a title and no alt attribute. So how do you do it? You just write your tag, or you don't have to write your tag, because if you don't write your tag, that's what's, if you just do this, what's really happening is that. You don't want to use the global selector because it, or the implicit, this is an implicit global selector, this is an explicit global selector. You don't want to use either of those because it's performance. You're basically saying check every single element on this page to see if it has an alt attribute. So we just put image in front of it, and it will match every image on the page, because in the brackets we have only listed the attribute. We haven't listed the value. We've just did the attribute. Here, it will go into every form on the page and check every descendant of that form element to see if it has a type. So there's a little space here. So it's as if I put the little star, but I could have put input, because only input has the type attribute. And it says input type date. Doesn't matter if it's type date, type text, type whatever, it'll match that. IE6 does not support this. Who's still supporting IE6? Okay, we will stop talking about IE6 for today. Good. IE7 does support this, as long as the attribute on the page is not empty. So, the older attributes, we had the basic one. We have the equals sign, which means exactly equal to. Now, exactly equal to, is that case sensitive? It depends. If it's type equals checkbox, that's HTML. Therefore, it's not case sensitive. In the HTML, it will not be case sensitive as a selector. If it is class equals, class is case sensitive, so then it would have to be. And why would you use class equals? You would use class equals basically so IE6, which I said I wouldn't talk about, doesn't, you know, it's a hack to not hit IE6, but so it will match any attribute E that has the attribute attr with the exact value. We then have the pipe. Now the pipe equals means match anything that starts with, that is exactly equal to, or starts with followed by a dash. Originally this was put into selectors because of languages. You would have EN-US, EN-UK. Right? So you don't want to say all the languages. You just want, basically starts with EN. But there was no starts with. So they put the pipe in there. What's cool about this is in HTML5 we have the dataset API, which means we can add data dash attributes. Do you guys know what the data? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nods and one quizzical look. So I will answer the quizzical look. So in HTML5, you can basically create any attribute you want. You simply prefix it with data dash, and then you can write anything afterwards. So this is kind of nice because you can just do data right here, and it's basically anything with any data attribute. Doesn't matter what the attribute is. So it's not just languages anymore. Not that it was limited to that anyway, but then we have the tilde equals. And that basically means match any space-separated word. So it can be the first word, the last word, or any space-separated word in between. So here, a title, tilde equals more. It matches this space-separated word. We're good. If it had been the word ant, it would not have matched because that's just part of a word. So that's tilde equals. The problem with the word ant has been resolved because in CSS3 we now have attribute selectors based on regular expressions. They're not fully regular expressions, but this might look familiar to you. Do you guys know what the caret means in regular expressions? Starts with, ends with, and matches anything. So that's basically what it is. Starts with val, ends with val, or has val anywhere, doesn't have to be space separated. So instead of the tilde, we have the star, and we can match even parts of words. Notice right here it says you can actually use many of these. So you could do a title. Oh, I actually used this as an example. A with a title, href, and then you could do href starts with HTTP. So why would you want to do that? So here's the example that I have. I put two of them up here. When are these useful? There are certain features that always start, that you might want to do because they basically always do the same thing. So every link that starts to with mail to will open up your text, your email client, right? And you kind of want to tell the user that, hey, this is going to open up your email client. So you can put a little email icon. So you say href starts with mail to, and then background image email icon. And then of course you would put padding. This is just to show you the idea. And this is one I use in my print style sheets all the time. It says href caret equals HTTP. So what that means is this link is an external link, right? Generally in your content, instead of a relative link. And then with generated content, I actually print to the page, the opening parentheses, attr href, closing parentheses. And we'll get to this, how to create generated content, not in the next section, but in the section after that. So don't worry if that doesn't make sense yet, it will. But you know how when you print on when you are looking at this and there's a link, you can click on it and you can go to a different page, right? Well, if you're printing it, you can't press on a piece of paper. I've been trying that for years, it doesn't work. So this will actually show the user what that link would have said. And so that's a nice little use of it. Ends with is very similar. PDF after, just either put the word PDF, or if something ends in PDF, indicate with an icon. Whatever you want to do. If it's a docx, Excel, or whatever, or if it's does anyone code in ASP.NET? One person, so I cannot make fun of it. Usually it's what I make fun of all day. I'll be nice. Okay, so this is the shorthand if you ever come back to this and you don't want to look at everything. If you press on the number 2, there's notes. So I'm going to give everyone like 2 or 3 seconds to play. 2 or 3 seconds is not enough. You're destined to failure with 2 or 3 seconds. Let's give you guys about 30 seconds to play with this while I'm playing with it. So it's gray, page is gray, so that means you can play with it. And I'll play with it up here, but definitely get the hang of it. So here it says any ahref overline. So you see these 3 have overlines. And I could do, but however, obviously a link has an href, but if I do starts with equals to HTTP, this one is internal. It just says local PDF. So it lost the overline and got the underline. But I'll just make this bold instead of a font. Wait. So these 2 are bold because they're external links. This one is not because it's an internal link. I could do title star equals unicorn. Both of these have the word unicorn. If I actually were to remove rather, if I were to make this a tilde, it would only match the bottom one because it has to be a full space separated word. So what other ones should we be playing with while we're playing during these 30 seconds, which have been longer than 30 seconds? Ends with. Let's do ends with. Ends with PDF. So there's two PDF files, and they're both bold because they end. The href ends with $ equals PDF. Any questions on this? Okay.
Are there any performance considerations we need to worry about when using these?
So there's performance considerations when you're doing CSS. Like there's some CSS selectors that are faster than other CSS selectors. Like when I said don't use the global selector. But what happens is it basically starts with this. It starts on this side and moves that way. No, that way, if you're looking at the board. But it will actually find the LI. It'll match your LIs, then see if they have the selectors, then go up and see if it's a child of a div, then go up. So you basically want to make your selectors small so that it's not going through so many things, backchecks. But you don't want to make them too global either, because if you do div, it'll match every single div on your page. So when you're doing if you look at the performance of like your reset CSS, you'll see that most of the time spent rendering CSS is actually on your reset, because your reset is hitting every single element. So it's kind of interesting. But the performance hits of CSS selectors are minute. So it's more important to make it legible for you than it is to make it performant, because browsers are optimized to render CSS. So yes, there is a difference, but you're talking, and I'm making numbers, I'm pulling numbers out of my tushy. You're talking about 0.001 milliseconds. Make it legible for yourself, but limit your selectors to 3 deep. Like with people use SAS, Compass, and all that other stuff. Do you guys use preprocessors? So when you guys start nesting super deep, 1, it adds bytes to the page, and 2, it takes longer, because it's actually going back up the page and checking every div to make sure it has that parent. So once you've gone more than 3 deep, say, hey, I'm going a little bit far. So nesting, yeah, is super cool, but try to make your stuff more general.